I have never been scared before, and I know that sounds crazy, but never once in my life have I felt the emotion fear. So even when I'm drugged and kidnapped, I don't fear for my life or anything. And yes, it's probably because I was raised in a house of killers and monsters. I will admit, though, that I was very curious. Who the hell kidnapped me? It definitely wasn't anyone I knew, because I would have recognized the voice. Maybe it was one of my dad's old enemies. But why would they be after me? So many questions ran through my head as I slowly began to regain consciousness. My eyes fluttered open, and I still couldn't see anything. I tried to say something, but couldn't, so I guess my body wasn't fully awake yet. As I tried to move the rest of my body, I realized I was tied down. I wonder if this is how my mum felt in all those stories she used to tell me. "Are you sure it's the right girl?" I heard the raspy male voice say as he got closer towards me. I stopped moving and listened. "I know for a fact that it's her. She looks just like her dad before the accident," a different female voice replied. "How would you know what Jeff looked like before?" "I just know stuff. Now go see if she's awake," she said in an angry tone. Then I heard mumbling and footsteps walk towards me. I shut my eyes tight as the bag was lifted from my head because it was too bright. "Who are you?" I asked, squinting, trying to see if I could see anyone. "Stop struggling, child," the raspy-voiced man said, taking a step away from the shadows he was standing in. It was like one of those cheesy scenes in a horror movie. He was somewhat tall, with grey skin and long claw-like fingers. "I'm the Rake," he smiled. "Okay, Rake. I'm assuming you know my father, and when he finds out that you have me, he's going to rip you apart, so I advise you let me go now," I snarled. "See, we can't let you go, my dear. We need your help." He took another step towards me. "Help? Why would I help you?" Once again, he took another step towards me. He was practically standing on top of me now. "You're the ultimate weapon." "The ultimate weapon for what? I'm not a fighter. I've never killed anyone. You must have the wrong person." He just shook his head and walked away. "That's not what my boss said. She's convinced you're the one." "The one for what?" I yelled, starting to feel stressed out. His smile grew and he turned around dramatically to look at me. "The one to take down your father." His words echoed in my head as he left me tied up in the room. My father? I knew my father had enemies, but neither him or my mum told me anything more than that. I'm not very good with time, but I'd say he left me there about 3 hours with just nothing. What were they going to do to me? I had to get out of here before I found out the answer. My thoughts were interrupted by heavy breathing coming from the corner of the room. "Hello?" I shouted, getting my hopes up. It was pitch black in the room, so maybe this person could help me get out of this hellhole. "Please, I've been kidnapped." The breathing got louder and closer until it stopped meters away from my face. I felt warm liquid dripping on my leg. I've been living with killers long enough to know what human blood feels like and what it feels like when it cakes. "Oh shit," I yelled as a knife shot out of the darkness, puncturing the skin on my shoulder. "Shit!" I screamed in agony. In a rush of adrenaline, I shot my leg out, hitting my attacker, making him stumble backwards. The light over me turned on with the noise of chains being pulled. I got a look at my attacker, or what was left of him. It was a man, at least 6 feet tall, with leather skin and a gas mask. I saw the skin under his neck bulge along with the sound of chains rattling. He was holding a standard kitchen knife. The eyes on the gas mask were broken and leaking blood. The chain was coming from behind his neck and leading to the same corner he was in. It lunged at me, cutting the ropes across my chest and making the chair topple backwards. The creature leaned over me, ready for the kill, when chains rattled, and the chain noose under his skin ripped through his spine and throat, ripping his head off. It landed on my chest. I screamed bloody murder as I used my weight to throw the head off of me. I looked over my shoulder after calming down a little to see the knife. I had to roll over on my side. The pain in my arm was worse due to my weight on it. I grabbed the knife and cut the ropes binding my hands, and gave my arms freedom to cut the ropes binding my legs. I jumped up. God, I was sitting for way too long. A dark, low laugh emitted from the recesses of the dark room. "Please don't tell me there are more in here," I whined, catching my breath. The pain from the knife finally started to kick into my shoulder, and I winced, falling to my knees. How could my mum and dad deal with this burning pain every day? I heard chains rattling from nearby, getting closer and closer. I rose to my feet, ready for another brutal fight. The noise of chains moving stopped right at the edge of the darkness where I couldn't see anything. A man emerged from the darkness with a black jacket and a human head for a mask. The eyes were cut out so he could see. He had 5 human heads hanging from chains with saw blades in them. He charged at me, swinging the head of a little girl with her eyes hanging out of her sockets. Living with killers gives you killer instincts. I dodged the head and slid behind it through a puddle of blood on the ground, and rose behind him, stabbing him in the shoulder. He jumped in the air and ran back into the darkness. "Where the hell are you?" I yelled, feeling claustrophobic and paranoid, knowing that the guy could be anywhere prepared to gut me brutally. He leaped from above, swinging a saw blade head down at me as I jumped out of the way, tumbling to the ground in the dark. I landed in what I can only expect is blood. "Are you kidding me?" I yelled, instantly regretting the decision to cover my mouth with my hands. The man slowly turned to look in my general direction. Realizing quickly that I had the upper hand, I moved swiftly and quietly through the darkness. I tripped on something metal and soon realized it was a staircase leading to a catwalk. I instantly had a brilliant plan. I ran up the stairs as quietly as I could. I'm pro at throwing shit at Jack and nailing him in the head, so this should be easy for me. I locked onto the man and threw my knife at his head, nailing him in the right eye. I instantly felt an adrenaline rush as I saw his body collapse to the floor. Then it hit me what I'd done. I'd just killed someone. But it was alright, he was going to kill me, right? It was a life or death situation. I hopped down from the catwalk when all the lights in the room turned on, revealing a horrific sight. Intestines hung from rungs on the ceiling, suspending bodies. The children were gutted and mangled. A bench sat on the left corner of the room where a couple was pinned to the wall, and a cross made of bone was next to the catwalk where a burned corpse of a man was crucified. I walked to the door and tried to open it, taking one last glance back at the room and running to retrieve my knife. It was locked. I collapsed from the stress. What the hell was I supposed to do? I stood up, walking over to some bodies. I fought with all my might not to throw up. Why? Why out of everyone did I have to be born into a family of killers? I sighed, tripping over one of the skulls and falling and crushing another one with my hand. A sick crack noise sounded as the skull cracked, and my hand dove into its brain. I screamed, pulling it out as soon as I'd made contact with it. As I looked back at the skull, I saw something reflecting in the light of the room. "No way!" I cried. I knew I was going to have to reach my hand in there and grab whatever that was, no matter how much I didn't want to. Without giving myself enough time to process what I was doing, I reached my hand into the brain and ripped out what appeared to be a key. My whole face instantly lit up as I raced over to the door, but of course, the key didn't fit in the keyhole. I slid against the door onto the floor as I buried my face between my knees, trying not to cry. "You have to stay strong, Sky," I told myself. I had to find a way out of here. If there was a key in the skull, that must mean... I stopped myself, realizing what I had to do. I once again rose to my feet and walked over to the head that was by the last one I mangled. I picked it up and dropped it. It shattered against the blood-stained concrete. As I bent down to inspect it, I once again found another key. I ran over to the door, but of course it didn't fit. Running back to another skull, I smashed them each one by one, collecting all the keys and bringing them to the door. After trying a couple, the door finally opened. I hopped to my feet and walked out of the room into what appeared to be another room. This room was bigger, though, much bigger. I waded into the large room. The room was ridiculously dark, so I couldn't really see anything. As I was about in the middle of the room, the door slammed behind me, leaving me surrounded by nothing but thick darkness. The dark never bothered me. Even when I was just a little girl, I never needed a nightlight or anything. In fact, it was almost calming. But something about this darkness left me feeling uneasy. I stood there, not wanting to move. A very muffled sound came from in front of me. I swear it was whispering, but it was far too muffled to decipher what it was saying. I heard another set of whispers start from behind me, then next to me, then the other side of me. The whispers rapidly started to fill the room. The voices started to enclose me. Something reached out and grabbed my hands. Then I felt sharp claws drag across my arms. I screamed, trying to pull away, but it was no use. Whoever or whatever was holding me wasn't going to let me go anytime soon. I didn't want to give up, but there was really nothing I could do to get out of here. My arms started to burn as they dug deeper, still whispering. "That's enough," a strict voice called from somewhere in the room. Within a few seconds my arms were dropped and I fell to my knees. My arms were on fire as warm blood trickled down both of them. Why is this happening to me? This night was supposed to be perfect. A hand rested on my back and I jumped. A woman's chuckle soon followed. No need to be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you, her soothing voice said as she stroked my hair. I don't know if it was from all the blood I lost or just the fact I was desperate to get out of this hellhole, but I felt like I could trust this woman. Please, please help me, I begged. She just chuckled again. You're such a beautiful young girl, Sky. It's been so long since the last time I seen you. Wait, what? I said, moving away from the voice. This woman, knows me. Who are you? I demanded, standing up and holding my arms. It doesn't matter who I am. All that matters is who you are supposed to be. The pleasure in her voice almost scared me. And who am I supposed to be? I shouted, feeling irritated. Sky, you already know this. You're just avoiding the answer. She laughed. Your mother did the same thing many years ago. I felt lightheaded. All the darkness that was all around me started to close in. I collapsed to the ground, falling hard on my already throbbing arms. I heard heels walk in my direction and someone lean over me. You're the one to kill your father. The bright rays of sun beat against my closed eyelids. I rolled over, trying to block out the sun when I realized I was outside. I instantly sat up to find myself in the woods somewhere. I stood up. Was that whole thing a dream? My arms, I whispered to myself, looking down at my arms. They were all wrapped up. It wasn't a dream. I figured I should leave the bandages on because even though I didn't know who or what did it, they did it to help me. I looked around the woods, trying to figure out where I was. I was only a couple miles away from my house, so I started walking. My head was pounding, worse than it ever had before, not to mention I was starving. But that one didn't surprise me. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. And no, I'm not anorexic. I just don't really have a big appetite, so I don't eat. Sky? I looked over my shoulder to see Jack leaning against a tree. Oh, hey. I turned around and waved. Where have you been? We thought you just ran away or something. What do you mean? I was only gone for 1 night, I said. He just shook his head. You've been missing for a week. A week? I asked, letting this process. No, that's impossible. I was only gone for 1 night. Yeah. We've all been looking for you. Oh, well, I better get home then, I said, turning on my heels and walking away. Sky, what happened to you? Jack asked, almost hesitantly. I'm not sure, I said before walking away again. When I got home, my mum tackled me to the ground with a hug, followed by constant kisses and crying. Where have you been? She asked. Honestly, I don't know. And what happened to your arms? She asked, grabbing them. I flinched right as she touched them. Oh, sorry, honey, she apologized, letting go of me. It's okay, Mum. I'm just glad to be home. You need to tell me everything. What happened? She asked, leading me into the kitchen, where we sat down. I sighed, knowing I was going to have to tell the truth about everything. There's this boy? Sky! Mum, don't interrupt me. Please just let me talk, and I will accept any punishment after. She nodded in agreement, and let me finish my story. From the party to the bitches, all the way to when I had to smash brains to get keys for a mysterious woman. By the time I finished my story, my mum just stared at me, her mouth hanging open and her eyes wide. I couldn't tell what she was thinking. I'll be right back. I just need to go find Jeff, she said before storming off into the woods. I sat there, confused and exhausted. I decided I should go clean myself off before I was caked in blood. I went into the bathroom and unwrapped the bandages on my arms. It hurt to take them off though, because all the blood was sticking to my scars. After what seemed like forever, I finally got the bandages off. I inspected how deep the cuts were and froze in fear. Carved into my arms weren't any normal scratches. I read my arms, horrified. Death was carved into my arms over and over again.